This episode is brought to you by Personal Capital. Don't forget to sign up for your free account with Personal Capital right now. With Personal Capital, you'll finally be able to see all your accounts in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. To sign up for free, go to personalcapital.com/smartpeople. Again, that's personalcapital.com/smartpeople. Personal Capital, less fees, more G's.
The podcast where we talk to smart people, but not necessarily done by smart people.
That is an awesome question.
This one goes down probably on one of my top 5.
Hey, I like nutrition. I like to eat food. This is the coolest thing ever. We're going to do this forever.
I wish I paid more attention in that class.
You know, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand that. As a man, I don't get it.
Welcome to smartpeoplepodcast.com.
Hello and welcome to Smart People Podcast, conversations that satisfy your curious mind. So glad you could join us today as we cover a topic that, in all honesty, I could really use. We're talking about women and men, the opposite sexes, how to communicate with them, how to find the one of your dreams, how to live the life you want with them, and how to communicate in the different strategies that we need when we're in relationships. As many of you know, I'm recently married, so I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out. It's really, as we all know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's just the nature of the opposite sexes. I'd have it no other way. It keeps us on our toes, but it can always help to learn a couple tools, a couple of ways to be on the same page with your partner, to create intimacy. And then there's things like, what if you're single? How do you find the woman of your dreams? What does that even mean? How do you know the right signals? We cover all these things today as we talk with Savannah Ellis. Savannah is the CEO and founder of the Infidelity Recovery Institute, and she is also the COO of the Relationship Society. Savannah has coached thousands of couples and individuals from Sydney, Australia to Las Vegas, Nevada, to help them achieve their relationship and personal goals. Her passion is to help people be authentic to themselves and others. She is also the author of the recent book, I Cheated. Now, we don't talk too much about infidelity, but we do kind of cover the pitfalls that often accompany relationships as you grow in a relationship, the things that change, how to keep things passionate, how to really keep that fire burning. And then we talk about the early stages, how to communicate, and how to find that partner in crime. Going to turn it over here to Savannah in a minute. Please, guys, if you enjoy the show, we'd really appreciate if you head on over to iTunes or Stitcher. Leave us a review and a rating. It helps us. It gets people to find out about us. We're just trying to spread the wealth. Head on over to smartpeoplepodcast.com, see what we're all about, read the posts, check out our favorite quotes, and sign up for our newsletter. It's the best way to stay in touch. Hope you enjoy the show. Here it is, Savannah Ellis. Well, Savannah, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you. It might be a little selfish on my end because I just got married I think it's a month ago. And I can't say a ton has changed. We've lived together for a little bit and we've been dating for a while. But now it's real, and it's always been real. But now I'm like, okay, this is forever. And I better learn how to communicate. Like, I better actually put some work into it. So I figured, hey, we can, that's where we should start. So I'd like to kind of learn, what is the best way that you have found for couples to communicate with each other so that they can get things off their chest when they need to, be honest with each other so you don't have the problems arise later, all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, you must have been doing something right to get that wonderful wife of yours to sign that contract, right? So, I think we underestimate what our skills are when it comes to that department, and that little seed of doubt gets into our minds, and then it grows into something that's bigger than Ben-Hur. So how do we remind ourselves what's really important when it comes to communication? It goes back to those fundamental basics, because we really are quite instinctive. It's really already programmed into us. And I think it's important, especially for guys, to understand, to really listen to their instinct. And if you stepped away from that, especially if you're a city guy, I'm going to remind you right now what you need to really focus on to really remember how to communicate. So it really goes back to what I call the 3 keys. And this also follows into something else. Let me just add what I call the monogamy pyramid. And so this really goes down to just three important factors. And it's quite simply chemistry, personality, life goals, and values. Now, that doesn't sound like it's a step-by-step plan for communication, but let's think about it, right? Let's think about chemistry, right? So if you're really attracted to someone, let's think about you, how you met your wife, right? Your potential wife, and you had that chemistry for her, right? So did that make it really easy for you to talk to her when you first met her?
It was simple. It's so interesting that you brought those three things up, and I'll let you keep going on those, but I do remember that day, and it was just so much fun, and it remained that way for months.
Right. So just on that though, if she, like, say for example, it was an internet date and it was a first date, right, via the internet, and you weren't that attracted to the woman, right? Do you, but let's just, and maybe this wasn't the scenario, but you weren't really that attracted to her. Maybe it had to grow into something down the track. Do you think the communication would have been a little bit more backwards at that stage?
Oh yeah, it would have been forced. I mean, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have done it because I think you got to be attracted to him right away.
There you go. And that's what you're talking about when I talk about natural, right? This is instinctive. So what it sounds like, you were really attracted to this woman. What's your wife's name?
Her name's Heather.
Heather.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you were really attracted to Heather, and it really came naturally. So, and she would have picked up on that, and it would have made her feel really good. Okay. So then it goes into personality types, right? Personality types means a lot, because to me, I mean, unless there's a mental disorder, there's nothing really wrong with anyone, right? It's really just about matching up of personality type. So when you hear somebody bitching about this person has all these problems or issues, they don't really have all these problems and issues. They're just not right for you, right? And you're forced yourself into that relationship, and now all you're doing is nagging and becoming, you're not being authentic, and that's what causes a lot of misery. Maybe you're just sticking in that relationship because you can't be bothered finding anyone else, right? You go down the pub and you hear your friends just talk about their girlfriends and they're bitching away, and you just think, man, why don't you just leave her, right? Why don't you just go and find someone that you can actually get along with? And this is really important, that you find someone with the right personality type for you, because long term, for example, when you get married, you're going to have this friendship. And friendship is one of those key elements in a long-term relationship. Sex will start to, sex is always important, but it's really important when you're under 40, right? It's like you must have it, right? And I, for male clients, when they come in, I've got the Infidelity Recovery Clinic, right? And guys come in and they almost feel ashamed that they have this strong drive, this strong sexual need. And I say, just own it, right? You've got to own it, and you've got to tell your wife, hey, I've got this need for sex. I've got to have it several times a day. And I'm not going to bug you about that several times a day, but just know that if I could have it several times a day, I would have it several times a day. Just get that communication out there, because if you guys can develop this friendship and this rapport, then you can develop some humor in the relationship, and it's not so dramatic all the time when a man has to say, hey, I really feel like some. And then she's like, oh my God, you're at it again. Right?
That's a really funny point. And I'd like to say for everyone and all female listeners, just assume that they want to have sex with you. Just assume it. And then at least you won't be surprised when they bug you about it.
That is so right. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you for questions,
because please don't.
Because I know you're a newlywed. But I just want to say that, this first year of marriage is such an exciting time, but it can continue the whole relationship if you've got someone with the right chemistry and the right personality, because sex and friendship should be the two ingredients that basically the theme of the entire marriage, the entire relationship. And if people can just remember those two elements of the success of marriages, then there wouldn't be divorce.
When you said that when you broke it down into the chemistry, personality, and then life goals and values, I got goosebumps because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was giving relationship advice. Not that I should be, but I was just saying, here's what I've found. And I said, I think there's two things that define a perfect person for anyone. So the two things are you super attracted to them right off the bat and basically for as long as you've known them? And I don't think there's any apologies to that. It's part of it. And the second part is, do you want to be around them? And when you're around them, can you be your true self? And that's it. And for me, I don't think it was a conscious decision, but I think for everyone, we get bombarded with so many different, oh, you got to look for this, you got to find this person, it's got to be great, there's fairy tales, but it's like, do you enjoy being around them and do you want to jump their bones for the most part? And that's pretty much it.
That is it. That is well said. And men just have to be more authentic in saying that. When I was in LA, because I live part-time in 3 cities right now, one of the biggest debates I got hooked onto on our therapy website was men in LA, and they're finding that females are becoming too domineering and, standing over men, and men don't have a say anymore. Well, men do have a say. They just need to step up and say it. Right? And stop being railroaded. You do have a say, but men really, and this is a deeper issue too. It's basically, a product of a divorced society with a lot of females raising men, right? That's one of a big issue. But men feel like, they can get pushed over and they don't stand up for themselves. And remember, your childhood and your teenage years, your first relationships, is your only model, your only training ground for your future relationships. So if you don't learn the communication skills and the conflict resolution skills there, where else are you going to learn it? Right? Yeah. And that's why divorce is so high. Think about it. In that first, divorce basically averages out between the 7 and 10 year mark because both people feel like, well, we failed. They place blame on either themselves through guilt and shame or the other person because, the other person has all these flaws. But really, they just haven't done any courses or they don't have any knowledge how to do something different.
One of the things that I know almost everyone that I'm friends with struggled with, I'm now 31, so recently was in that whole mode of meeting different women and dating and all that stuff. And I know a bunch of my friends in the same boat. And they were always wondering, look, I like this person, but are they perfect for me? I like them, but they have this one thing, or I might not like their mom, or they might something about their job. They might not make any money. They might be too busy. I mean, there's a lot of things. And I know that people sometimes get stressed out and go, well, if it's not perfect, then I'm just going to be another statistic that ends up in divorce. Do you hear that kind of mentality often?
Oh, absolutely, because we like to listen to those old wife tales, right? It serves us well.
What do you tell them when they say, look, it's great, I think it's perfect, but I don't know, and if it's not, I'm worried it's just going to not work out. So, I mean, I guess it goes to that whole commitment phobe thing.
You're right. I mean, and commitment phobia too, it's you really have to look at the background of someone that says we have a commitment phobia issue, because if they're living in a big city, right, and they've got commitment phobia, is it really commitment phobia, or are there just too much choice and they're making a decision that they like being single, right? So when we label things, we start to stereotype and then we start to follow a label, right? In Sydney, it's a great party town for young people. And many of my friends, I've been in the States for 5 years and I've come back, and many of my single friends are still single, right? And I did a little study, a question group the other week, and I said, why is it that everyone's still single? You're all very good looking people living this great lifestyle, and it's just there's too much choice. Right? Nobody wants to basically just have the choice of just one person. So because, the lifestyle is so good versus somebody that is out of the Sydney Basin, right, more of my country kin, to them the belief system is that it's very important to have a family, to have a community, right? That is very important, right? Rather than, the bigger, better deal, having lots of choice, having a fun party lifestyle.
Sure.
So it really depends where it comes from.
When you talk to those people who have all that choice, are they often in conflict? Because I know of many of people who are like that. They say, well, I want to settle down. And then you just watch them unable to settle down. And you really wonder, have they sat down, looked at themselves and said, what do I actually want at this age in my life in terms of relationships?
Right. And once again, yeah, you're right. It is an age thing, right? They come to a certain age. And the longer you are single and you are getting that list, top 10 list of what they must have, and then it turns into a list of 20, and then it's a list of 30. And before you know it, that list goes out the door of the pub that you're bitching about that list to your friends, rolls down the street, right? So because all your fears and anxieties are built into that list as well. Right. And really people like that, if some of your listeners are like that, what that really is based on is trauma. So they really have to do an assessment of who hurt them in their childhood, early relationships. Was it betrayal by a parent? Was it betrayal by a first girlfriend or something like that? That they really haven't identified and tried to resolve.
So I know you talk a lot about infidelity, and what you were kind of just talking about, trauma, I think about the fact that almost everyone who has lived life, who has experienced things, at some point or another has dealt with heartbreak, maybe not just once, maybe multiple times, and it can be extremely traumatic. So for that person, whether it be somebody who is recently divorced, maybe you're going off to college and you just broke up with your high school sweetheart, or you were engaged and found something crazy or terrible happened and now the engagement got broken off. What do you tell people? Because I know you deal with that a lot, on how to move forward, how to be realistic with what that did to you, and how to not let it really determine your future relationship status.
Yeah, I mean, for example, my son is 21 years old, right? And, and of course, he's a little bit younger than what your general listener is. But this is how, he's at this age where he'll get stuck in this mindset. So I want to show an example to your listeners of how this really works. So he fell in love with this girl a couple of years ago. And of course, at that age, everyone's doing the wrong thing, right? So what's being faithful at the age of 16 and 17? Whoever turns up with a better car wins the deal. So, the girl that he was really into broke his heart. And I thought that was cute at the time, this little early love. But for him, I didn't really recognize how heartbroken he really was. Now, he's got this other girl that's totally in love with him now, and they've just moved in together, actually. But he won't commit to her. And so when I asked him about it, like, why you moved in with her, it looks like commitment, right? It smells like commitment. It looks like commitment. Why isn't it commitment? He said, well, I can't trust that, that she'll do the right thing by me, because I don't want me to invest all this time, effort, and money in her. And then at the age of 30, she leaves me. Right. So this, if I don't start working with him now and start to break this up, he'll be still thinking this thought when he's 30 years old. These thoughts just don't go away or disperse with time. So when I get clients and they're 30 or 40 or 50 years old, they've still got that same thought as, for example, my son. It's from that point of trauma that someone holds on and encodes that thought or that memory, and that is your belief until that thought or memory is changed.
Today, I want to share with you guys a free and secure tool called Personal Capital that solves 2 barriers to growing your wealth. The first barrier is that it's hard to keep track of your stocks, 401k account, bank accounts, etc., all on different sites with different usernames and passwords. It's such a pain in the neck. Secondly, you probably pay someone to manage all these accounts, and more than likely you're paying too much. Personal Capital brings all your accounts and assets on one single screen on your computer, phone, or tablet with real-time and intuitive graphs. It shows you how much you're overpaying in fees and how to reduce those fees. You also get tailored advice on optimizing your investment. So why wait? Signing up takes just a minute and it'll pay big dividends. Personal Capital gives you total clarity and transparency to make better investment decisions right away. To set up your free account, go to personalcapital.com/smartpeople. Personal Capital is free and the smart way to grow your money. You must go to personalcapital.com/smartpeople for your free account. What are you waiting for? Head over to personalcapital.com/smartpeople today.
One of the sponsors for the show today is 99 Designs, and as I'm sure you guys have noticed, they've been supporting the show for quite some time now. But more importantly, you need to know what 99 Designs can do for you. If you have any design needs, and I'm talking not just websites and logos, things like that, but t-shirts, car wraps, book covers, 99 Designs is the place to go, and here's why. Normally you get one designer who gives you a few different options, but they only have one outlook on what your brand or product should look like. With 99 Designs, you get dozens of designers and potentially over 100 different variations of a design for the price of just one. You then get to work with all of these independent designers and pick your favorite option and then pay for just that one. It's like having a whole firm work for you. As you know, John and I worked with them recently to kind of recreate our logo and put those on some laptop stickers. So by the way, if you want some of those, email us and we'll get them in the mail to you. But the bigger thing is you should head on over to 99 Designs. Go to 99designs.com/smart and you'll get a power pack upgrade for free just by using that link. I know a bunch of you have that entrepreneurial spirit, that thing you want to grow, that website you want to design, but a lot of times the logo or the branding or the images are holding you back because as we know, in today's environment, people will make a split-second decision based on how professional your images are. Visit 99designs.com/smart and get a $99 power pack of services free today.
How do you change that thought process? How do you go about breaking that up for those that are out there going, yeah, I just went through this, or, hey, maybe that is the case or the issue? How do they, what advice do you give them to start working through that so that they can move on to a healthy relationship?
The best way to really do that once you recognize it, because this is a type of thinking that can destroy your life. Or as a guy, this can cost you a lot of money in terms of divorce, right? So this is, no matter where you are, I seriously recommend that you go find the best therapist wherever you are and get some cognitive behavioral therapy, because what that does, it starts to challenge those limiting beliefs. And that's what you really want, because the thing is, you understand consciously, right from wrong. You understand it, but subconsciously, it's telling you a different story, right? It's keeping you powerless. It's keeping you in that state of mind, like my own son when he was 16 or 17 years old, and that girl dumped him for the guy with the better car, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing now is a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy with him, very covert, because I'm the mother, right? And I'm a psychologist. So that doesn't go down too well with a son, right? Mom, really?
Exactly. I was thinking that. I was like, oh man, that's got to be difficult for your son. Like, that is the one topic you just don't want to go there with your mom.
Right? And I don't want to go there with him, but it's just like, oh my gosh, what do you do? Because he's not going to take it from anyone else. And I'm going to get the comment, Mom, don't be a therapist. It's like,
yeah, exactly. So, okay. So what are some of those things? What is an example of cognitive behavioral therapy that you might use on somebody, or that our listeners could be like, I'm going to use this tool?
What it really is, it's just challenging those limiting beliefs. Okay. So it's a really, but you need to go and see a therapist about it. It's not something that you can go and do by yourself at home. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's basically what a therapist goes to school for like 6 to 12 years to actually learn to do. So you go to the therapist, you'll do a whole assessment, and they'll explain to you how CBT works. It's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And what they really do is try to look at how those limiting thoughts and beliefs lead to your actions and your emotions.
I'm familiar with it. I know how much change it can bring on, you can rewire the brain in a way that if you don't work on it, it can cause a lot of issues. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is, okay, so say we have people who are they're out in the dating scene, they're meeting women or men. I guess I always come from my perspective, but what have you found people are concerned about? You know, like when they're meeting people and they're looking into a life partner, what are the things that people call you up and say, "Oh, I just don't know if this is the one," or "I don't know if this is fairy tale love," and you know, it's the whole pressure to get married and have babies. Like, what kind of advice do you give those people, and what do you work with them on?
Just recently, I had the clinic in Las Vegas, and I was really impressed with especially guys that would come in early 30s, right? And they'd come in with or without their girlfriends, and they were really struggling with being monogamous, right? Or having a roving eye. And they really wanted to be that monogamous guy. How do we stay monogamous to our wives or girlfriends? How do we just be interested in one person? And it's really genuine. You know, some people, unless you're in that situation, it can sound quite amusing, right? I get a lot of very successful people and sports people that come in and they're like, wow, we really want to stay committed to our wives. This is really a challenge, right? Mm-hmm. Very good looking guys, very athletic, and they're in Las Vegas, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, but you've got to understand that men want to be monogamous. It's just really, I mean, monogamy isn't something that we're naturally built to be, right? We are, you know, it's a conscious choice to be monogamous. And unless you're brought up with a really strong belief system, so it's not about, you know, your attachment to the girl that's going to keep you monogamous. It's about your belief system, about what being faithful is, about what having a relationship really means, right? And then if your belief system is that, okay, no matter what, I will not sleep with another woman while I'm married, or I'll not have sex with anybody while I have a girlfriend, right? I'd rather leave my girlfriend than be unfaithful to her, right? Mm-hmm. That's a really strong belief system. It's not about the girl. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, for example, one guy came in with his wife. She was a very successful doctor. Hand in hand, they came in the door, and that's basically what he said. You know what? I have a roving eye, and, you know, my wife and I have been married for a few years, and I'm really finding it difficult to not look at other women, and I'm scared that I'm going to take this to the next level, right? So we really had to look what was going on inside that relationship. Now, I don't like to go back and do cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Bring in all the past stuff and try and make sense of your thoughts and feelings and match it up from your childhood and bring it into the present, right? Because when I'm in couple therapy, it's all about the here and now and the future, right? That's why I have successful couple therapy, right? Because people, especially guys, you don't want to be in session for any more than, say, 5 to 6 sessions. Right? Mm-hmm. You're solution focused. You want to get these ideas or concepts, you want to be able to apply them, and you want to get on with your life. That's the way it is. And so I knew I had a very short time frame with this guy, this couple. And so what was really going on is this couple now made family life a priority, right? You know, just being, you know, running the household, making a meal, sleeping at the right time, going to work at the right time, versus that friendship and the sex, right? So what happens when we all got married, the bed would have to be perfect, the evening meals would have to be perfect, you know, the parents-in-law would come over and have a nice little visit, and life became unnatural. So when we think about what's natural versus unnatural, it's natural when we think about mating to just get on with it and just, you know, have sex. That's why people couple up, you know, to have that friendship, that bonding and sex. It's unnatural to sit in front and, you know, of other people and have a tea party every single day and then not mate.
I really like the simplicity of that idea. It's kind of going to, look, there's a reason you're attracted to this person. There's a reason we do what we do. Maybe you don't have to think about it so much and do those natural things and keep it light, instead of planning that, like you said, make the bed, dinner at this time, this is your job, this is mine, laugh, make jokes and things like that are the cure to the boring relationship.
Right. And that's when it becomes boring. So even though he was trying to stay interested and focused in this powerful, strong, committed husband, the wife has become very staged. What happens after that? She lets herself go a little bit. They have a child. Now the child is the number one focused. And this is actually, it's horrible to say, but when most infidelity occurs in relationships is at that time of pregnancy and the first child. Wow. Because the woman naturally, how nature makes us women is that it gives us a natural dose of Prozac, if you like, so we can chill out and be focused on child rearing. And when that happens, we're instantly not interested in mating. Right, until that child is finished basically breastfeeding, and then we get our sex drive back. And I was having this conversation with a gynecologist friend, both in Las Vegas and another colleague in Apple Valley about this. And I said, you've got to tell your female clients this, because what happens is they go home and tell their husbands that they're asking too much of them by asking for sex. But if the husbands don't get sex, remember, it's the male's natural drive to want sex. So to say, okay, you cannot have sex now for 2 years, or you can have it once a month for the next 2 years, that is really putting a lot of pressure on the guy to be unnatural, right? Sure. So even though he doesn't want to act out, the possibility of him acting out is extremely high.
Yeah, and I think
yes, that belief system's really high.
Just knowing the reasoning behind it might help out a lot of people. Knowing, hey, it's not me. It's not that she doesn't want me. It's that nature intended it this way, and the hormones change and all that. And I think oftentimes just the knowledge and the awareness could help in a situation like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell you that those two doctors that I spoke about and went back and took that advice to their clinics, and because generally, remember, gynecologists are going to be on the side of the females because they're dealing with females all day, right? So so it's very unlikely that they take the male advice, just not to be mean against the males, but they're just looking at the female's perspective and so forth. But they said that really helped relationships. Right? Because the women are understanding what the man's need are, because we're not taught this, remember, in our childhood or through school, right? Or anywhere else. So it's got to come from a professional to say, hey, you're going to feel like this and you're not going to have that high sex drive. But you know what? Find intimacy in your relationship some other way if you don't want penetrative sex. There's other ways that you can have an intimate environment, right, and keep that friendship and sex really, it's sex. I mean, there's many different ways to have that intimacy and that bond. But that environment of intimacy, so the relationship bond is really tight, and then you don't have to step outside that relationship and make a mistake that most guys don't want to make.
And you mentioned something there. You said how, and you spoke on it earlier, that people aren't really taught these things. We kind of have a sloppy way that we learn and go about it unless we talk to a professional. And I wanted to sort of switch gears to another subject that we're not taught about, and it can get really frustrating. And that's just, at the core, it's arguments, but really it's conflict resolution in a relationship or just proper communication. And the reason, and what I kind of want to ask you about it is, we hear so many different things, right? We hear, okay, women, like, here's the most common, right? Women don't want problem solved. They just want to be listened to. And men, they don't really want to talk. They just want to be. So watch their sports and all this. And some of this is obviously an exaggeration or a stereotype. But in all honesty, what I found is sometimes, more often than not, there tends to be truth behind it. So since I have the expert that we don't often get to learn from on the line, talk to us about how we really should be communicating with each other in a relationship, what strengthens that bond, and specifically the difference between the way men and women communicate and want to be in that process.
Just on that, can I send your listeners over to YouTube? And there's a great video. It's called It's Not About the Nail. It's a really well done 3-minute skit about the differences between men and women and their conflict resolution and listening skills. I mean, I send all my clients straight to there at first because I love to use humor as well when I'm doing my coaching or therapy, because it's really important to have humor in a relationship. So that's a really strong point. To start, if you want to be great at conflict resolution, learn to use humor, not disrespectfully, but as a softener. Because we forget that we're talking to a friend. We're not going into battle with somebody, right? We don't hate this person. We really like this person. So we're trying to find a way to resolve it, not to keep the battle going. And people have to remember that. When you guys first met and falling in love, you wouldn't still be together if you fought intensely and to win and to really berate each other. You wouldn't be together now. So if people just remember that, hey, let's continue this relationship the way we started, that would solve most of the problems just to begin with. But your question is really in longer relationships, say you've already gone past that point, how do you get back to a point of basically, being a bit civil to each other? And I take people back to what I call the monologues. And it's all about listening skills. And there's speaking and there's listening, right? And listening is something that we're all really, really bad at. And so the monologues, it's a 20-minute exercise. And let me give you one of my secrets of therapy, right? I'm going to save you guys. I'm going to save you guys all $200 or $300, but just by this tip, right? And so this is a fantastic exercise, and it works time and time again. So what this exercise is, it's 20 minutes, and it's every single day. Remember, this is a couple who's in trauma or wants to improve their communication or conflict resolution skills. And so for 20 minutes every day, one person will take turns at listening and the other person will take turns at speaking. And generally when we start this exercise, we'll pick very neutral topics. We won't pick something that you've been fighting on consistently for the past 2 years, right? Something really general, like say your favorite vacation destination. And one person will start speaking about their most favorite vacation destination. And the other person's job is to listen, not to interrupt, not to eye roll, not to make snide comments, not to ask questions, but just to listen exactly like they would have when they were first dating, right? Like they were interested. And as guys, you know what it's like when you're at that bar or you're at that dinner table and that woman's talking and you're thinking, oh my gosh, right? I don't even hear what she's saying, but she's so beautiful, and you're nodding and you're being polite and you're looking engaged, right? That's okay as a guy. Just do that, because as a girl, we just want someone that's interacting and being attentive, right? Yeah. Now, you can't just totally tune out, because you might have to actually say something at the end, right, that indicates that you were paying attention. But I understand the way guys listen is very different from the way girls listen, but it's going back to those basics where you're just in tune with that other person.
I mean, I really love what you were saying about just imagine it's as if you first met, because we can all go back to that. And like you said, they can do no wrong. I could make you think I am so interested in what's going on. And, oftentimes I think, again, there's a lot of truth to that. You are interested when you care about them. And as time goes on, you sometimes go, oh, well, we have this foundation built, so I don't need to show that same interest. And it becomes apparent. And I think that's where a lot of the problems stem from.
Oh, Oh yeah. With guys, especially when they come in, they've been married 20 years, my heart breaks because the common theme for every guy that comes in is the wife doesn't give affection anymore. Affection and attention. And that's all he wants, right? Sex isn't actually on the top of the list. It's affection and attention because the wife doesn't listen anymore. He goes to open his mouth and she tunes him out straight away. And it's a real heartbreak. So to do an exercise like I just mentioned, it sounds easy, but just try it. For someone to actually sit down and listen for 20 minutes to someone they've been in a long-term relationship with and just listen intently, it's very, very difficult.
I can imagine it is. I'm going to try that out too. I really like that idea. I think the bond that it creates and what it can foster and just keep going through the relationship. I love that. Savannah, I really appreciate you being on the show. This is great stuff. I hope it helps out a number of people and at least getting them going in the right direction, keeping the relationship on track, finding the one, and all those good things. For more on what you do, and I know you blog about different things, you have videos, you have books and courses. Could you let our listeners know where they could find out more about you?
Yeah, just probably the best site to find out on stuff that we've been talking about today is my SavannahEllis.net site. And if you probably one of the most fun courses I've got right now is a course I got called Movie Therapy. And, it's basically watching chick flicks and then you go through really structured exercises at the end of that movie. And it helps you do those conflict resolution and communication exercises, right? And really keeps you tight. So that's a really great one. And then I've got I'm CEO of the Relationship Society with Dr. Joe Whitcomb. And if you want to be a coach, I've got the Infidelity Recovery Institute.
Well, again, Savannah, thank you so much for being on the show, and thanks for doing it. It's such an early time, I know, over there, but hopefully it's a good start to your day.
Oh, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Savannah. Once again, I was not there for this one, so this time I brought along a little special surprise in our outro here. And with me, I have my wonderful, beautiful girlfriend, Amanda. Do you want to say hi?
Hi.
I thought it'd be a perfect time to introduce her since Savannah and Chris talked about relationships and how important it was to have open communication throughout a relationship. And Amanda, what do you think in our relationship? Do we have good communication or no?
I definitely think we do.
What about humor? Because Savannah says that humor is a really important part of a relationship. Do you think I am one of the funniest people you know? Loaded question.
Yes.
Thank you. So guys, again, hope you enjoyed that with Savannah. Please head over to smartpeoplepodcast.com to see what else is going on. And you can tweet Savannah at Infidelity Guru if you have any questions. I'm sure she would be more than willing to have a conversation with you. And go ahead and check out her book, I Cheated, Affair Recovery Advice for When You Have Been Unfaithful. Hopefully, you may not have to read that book, but if you do have to, be sure to check it out. Head over to Amazon or your local bookstore. And speaking of Amazon, you can use our link, smartpeoplepodcast.com/Amazon, to give us a little kickback for each order that you make on Amazon. It costs you nothing, and it's one of the easiest ways to support the show, and we greatly appreciate when you guys do that. As always, if you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review and comment there. And if you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, please send us an email at smartpeoplepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and stay tuned for another exciting episode of Smart People Podcast next week.